We live in an entirely artificial state. John Delani was here, and he was talking about, he meant how he lives in a 72-degree world, is what he said, where everything is artificial. It's all cold and air conditioned perfectly. But the 72-degree world idea, it's a trap. And so many of us now, we have commoditized humans into, I pull out my phone, I have access to any human I want. I can look at pretty much like a lot of people naked, or I can look at people at their best. I can look at people at their worst. I can learn about this. I can see that. And now when we look at humans, what's really fascinating is some of the research is showing, as we look at, even if we take adult content, a lot of men, your brain starts to reprogram into activating like the area of the brain for using a tool instead of you communicating with a human being when they see a picture of a woman now, because you've built such associations. So now when they see you or me online or Andre, when they see us online, they don't get a serotonin burst. They don't get, oh, hey, there's that human I know, like we would have for the last, X number of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of humanity. It's, I get a dopamine rush from seeing that human, or I get a dopamine rush from how much I hate that human, and now I'm going to attack that human to get even more dopamine. And we have really just turned into a sugar rush for everybody. People see us and we give them a sugar rush, either by connecting with us or attacking us.
Yeah, there's even a deeper level to that. And the deeper level is that basically we're living in an age of self-crafted stories. We have always been delivered stories. In order to hear a story, you would go into a church. You'd hear a certain story during a sermon or a Bible reading. You would go into the village square and listen to somebody delivering a story. You would listen to your grandparents. And stories have always been contextual to the experience, right? If you're a church, you enter a state where you're willing to be listening to stories about God. Otherwise, you wouldn't be there. If you're listening to a story at a campfire, it's because you want to be there. But all of a sudden now we're flooded with different bits and clips of stories, and it is up to us to assemble them in any which way we want. Now, we all know that with tremendous power comes great responsibility, and humans
suck.
Thank
you, Spider-Man.
Humans suck at responsibility. You're welcome, Adam. Like, that's one thing that we're actually notoriously, spiritually, theologically terrible at, is responsibility, right? And now that we have so much responsibility to curate our own content, to curate our own stories, and build them in a way that is good for us, we're evidently failing at that over and over and over again. Now, the problem is, Candace, you're actually being blamed for the failure of other people, because I'll be honest with you, I do not watch porn. Right? I've never known you or met you before. Like, personally, your life is your life, and it's interesting. I find it interesting, but I do not have a desire to go and look at your previous work. And I am building a different story with you now as a human on the other side of the screen, and making a connection with you in a different way, because I know that there's parts of you that I don't necessarily want to go see. Right? And there's also parts of me that you don't necessarily want to go see, and we're creating a different types of relationship. We're now living in a way that we now have to create digital attachments. Adam's our attachment specialist. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do we start building relationships in the digital attachment space where everything is open.
I think it's curating. A lot of it's curating. It's it's rehumanizing. I think we need to go through a process.
Rehumanizing. I like this term.
Like Candace, I was on your podcast, and thank you for that. Now you're on my podcast, and people know that I'm a fairly religious person and big into psychology and attachment. And they might say, if they didn't know our separate brands, they might say, well, why are you talking to Candace? And I would say,
many will judge you.
Goes, how dare you? That. And I'm like, what do you mean? This is like a perfect connection. Like, look at her transformation as a mother, as like the seriousness with which she puts into her family and crafting this and helping other people do the same. Like, it's a perfect match, and other people would have no idea. I think that rehumanizing, instead of like Adam is this, Candace is this, like, oh, these are two humans, and they have actually some overlapping values. They're not one, like you said, they're not like dump them in that bucket, dump them in that bucket. We're two humans with very similar overlapping pieces that are very helpful. That someone listening to this conversation is probably agreeing with both of us, and someone listening to this conversation is probably disagreeing with both of us.
We're going to find out in the comments,
and
I guess.
We'll find out in the comments.
Let it loose, guys. Come on, drive my engagement up. Let's go.
We've gone through such a dehumanizing process, I think. And again, not that humans were ever perfect. We never were. But we've gone through such a ruthlessly dehumanizing process of pull everybody away from everything that ever meant something, put them in these boxes, give them dopamine screens where they just stare all day, and then watch them die. and wither up and be destroyed, I think people are starting to kind of filter out of their cubes back and try to reconnect in the public square with other humans, I think is what's happening. If you like this clip, I know you're going to enjoy the full episode. You can watch it right here.